All right, so the Supreme Court and its role in the election. I wanted to talk about what happened today, how it plays, and then something that I don't know that anybody or that very few people are talking about in regards to the Supreme Court and why it would be one of the motivations that the Supreme Court would have to side with Trump, apart from the fact that there's overwhelming evidence of fraud that took place in the election. But as we know, we live in a world of politics where um, justice doesn't always prevail in court. But so anyway, the news today was that Texas is suing Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, and maybe Arizona too. I don't remember which, um, if it's 4 or 5 states. But because I'm not specific on or I'm not certain about the specifics of the case. I know it has to do with the election. Basically, the fact that blatant, clear election fraud took place, and I guess how that affects Texas. The other thing that I don't think is common knowledge at this point, but I did hear probably will be common knowledge by the time this video comes out, is that Louisiana is also going to do the same thing. So my hope is that also Florida, my home state, come on, DeSantis, let's do it, does the same thing. That would be awesome. But I have to admit that I don't know that this is a great legal case, because of states' rights. I don't know how Texas can, um, I'm not sure the grounds that they're going to be able to, because I could see the Supreme Court basically wanting to go, every state has the right to certify their electors in the way that they choose to. Each state's sovereign, therefore Texas can't force anyone's hand, because you don't want to set a precedent where each states are suing each other um, for trying to force policy, basically. Um, I do think this is a great political move. And the reason why I think that it is because remember, if they dismiss this, and with the emphasis being states' rights, then Texas can say, um, basically, what about we secede then? Um, I think that could come up in conversation, and I wouldn't be surprised, just to drive the point home, if there isn't language in the legal brief, whatever you call those things, that alludes to that sort of idea. So, if, in other words, the Supreme Court is going to exalt state sovereignty in dismissing Texas's case, it's going to be hard for them to then deny state sovereignty when it comes to seceding from the Union. And think about this in terms of contract law. These states, we are a country of united states. Each state is sovereign, and so therefore that's the basis on which the Supreme Court would likely want to dismiss this case. Well, then when you have various entities that come together in an agreement, there's an expectation about what's supposed to take place in regards to this agreement. So when states come and they say, yes, we're going to agree to be under this federal umbrella, there is an expectation of how other states are going to behave in regards to that relationship and the effect that relationship has to the other states. So it's like contract law in a way. So if you're, as I understand contract law, or part of it, is if you're in contract with somebody, let's say two parties, and the other person violates that contract, well, you're not under that contract anymore. Once you realize they violated the contract, then you have no obligation to hold that contract anymore. And so under that sort of idea, Texas can say, hey, we got into this whole United States thing under the idea that there's going to be fair and free elections. And if these states aren't going to uphold their end of the bargain, we don't want in this contract anymore. And so you can see how this could be an effective argument when it comes to precedents. When it comes to that, because that's oftentimes what the Supreme Court is concerned with, is this idea of setting precedent, not setting precedent, and that sort of thing. And it's on this point that I think there's this other issue that the Supreme Court, I think, has to consider. Again, there's clear, overwhelming evidence of voter fraud in these states. It ain't just the states, it's like specific counties. And when people talk about there's fraud every election, this sort of nonsense they say. First they say there is no evidence, then they say well, there's fraud every election, but it's not enough to. Well, it's like, in these specific counties it was enough, and it was clear, and it was systematic, and it was coordinated, and it turned the election for a certain guy who hid in his basement. So the thing that I think would be hard for them to avoid, again, there's evidence to take the case, and there's evidence to side with Trump. That isn't always, what's right isn't always what happens in the court of law. I think we all know this is a problem with our legal system. But what may be a motivating force to try to make sure that it does happen this time is the fact that Joe Biden's party clearly wants to pack the Supreme Court. And for a body that is interested in precedent, that would be something they would be more than likely against. And just from a purely human, self-serving sort of motivational standpoint, the idea of somebody who wants to devalue you, your position, your standing, is one of the plaintiffs in a case, and they're clearly looked to be trying to steal the election, I think it's going to be very difficult for the Supreme Court to just not hear this case, and in fact not rule in favor of Trump if the evidence is as insane as it seems to be. And I mean insane in a overwhelmingly convincing way. So that's my thought on the Supreme Court, and the role that it's going to play. So let's see what happens. If you like the opinion, have a different opinion, comment if you like, share, like, and all that stuff. So till next time.